Happy New Year, Christian Chapel. It's that time of year when many of us have made resolutions to improve our lives in 2018. We've resolved to get in shape, to eat healthier, to save more and spend less, to invest more time into our most important relationships. Many of our resolutions are about making a difference and leaving a legacy for those that are coming behind us. No one is making destructive resolutions or wants to invest in things that don't matter or that no one cares about. We're not resolving to spend an extra 2 hours each day mindlessly staring at screens. We're not resolving to fritter away an extra $100 a week on impulse purchases. We want our resolutions to improve our lives. We want to make changes that will make a positive difference for us and for others. We want to be healthy and strong so that we can do things and influence people. We want to save more and spend less so we can give generously and not be a drain on others, and maybe even leave a little bit for those coming after us. We want to spend more time with our families to increase our connection with them and our influence in their lives. We all want to know how the world works, how we can make a difference in it, and our resolutions reflect that. Last week, Google published a video highlighting the things that we searched for most often in 2017. Our top searches reveal that we want to know how the world works and what role we play in it.
To the families and friends of the victims, know that we'll do everything we can. We are Vegas strong.
Look at that! It's emotional. I can't explain why, but it is.
I'm asking that you guys join and mobilize with me.
Love you, man.
Your hand back on, bro. You won't shake it, bro.
The things that make us different, those are our superpowers. Go out there and conquer the world. Because the world would not be as beautiful as it is if we weren't in it.
Our top searches from last year reveal that we want to know how the world works and how we can be part of making it a better place. As followers of Christ, we have these same desires, but we also have hope as we deal with them, because we believe that Jesus came to teach us about the way the world works and how we can find eternal significance in the world by attaching our lives to what He is doing. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at what it means to kind of forsake building our small temporary kingdoms that we are so tempted to give our time and energy to, and to instead take our time, our energy, our talents, our money, everything that God has given to us, and ask Him, God, why have you given me this? And how can I use it to be part of establishing your eternal kingdom in our world? And so we're going to kind of walk through that. Throughout the month, we're going to present some unique opportunities for you to give, some opportunities for you to go, and some opportunities for you to pray. And so we're really, really looking forward to this coming month. I hope you'll be here each week with us. We're going to start this morning by looking at Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 29, where Jesus talks to us about how we can be sure that the things we're building with our life will last. And He does that, as He often does, by telling us a story. It's called the parable of the wise and the foolish builder. So He says in verse 24, "Therefore anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at His teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. For the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to look at just 3 quick ideas from this story. And what I want to encourage you with is, you might have heard the story a lot, or maybe you're hearing it for the first time. But for all of us, I think that this story and the time of year we're in presents us with a really great opportunity to evaluate what have we been building with our lives up to this point, what are we going to build from this point forward, and how can we make sure that what we build is going to last. Right? And so Jesus teaches us really 3 things here. He teaches us that everyone's building something, that everything we build will be tested, and that because of that, we need to be sure we're building on the right foundation. So this first idea of everyone is building something, for some of you, you can easily accept that because you are a builder, right? You're the person that if something breaks, you look at it and think, I should fix that. Right? Not everyone is like you. If you don't know that, there are some people like me where when something breaks, you think, I need to buy a new one. Not all of us have that natural builder disposition. But what Jesus is teaching us here is regardless if you can fix something or not, you're building something. And everything you're doing with your life, every investment of time and energy, every time you give a gift or receive a gift, every time you express gratitude or complain about something, you are building something with your life. And what we're trying to ask this morning is, how can we be sure that what we're building will last past just this little temporary season, and even more than that, last even after we're gone? Now, 2018, the start of a new year, is always a time for many of us to look forward and to think about what do we want to build in the upcoming year. And we typically start to make these resolutions about how this year is going to be different and we're going to finally do the things we've never done before, but this is going to be the one, right? What the beginning of a year, though, is also time for is to look back at the previous year and to evaluate where we've been, what we've done, and how that's going for us so far. And so when it comes to this idea of building, don't just look forward to 2018 and think, what do I want to build this year? But look back on 2017 and evaluate, what was I building last year? And there's some really simple ways to do that that will kind of tell the truth to you about your life. The first thing you can do is you can evaluate your schedule from 2017, right? Look back and see, where did you spend most of your time? Where did you invest most of your energy? What were the things in your life that exhausted you, and what were the things that refreshed you? And the good thing about that is your calendar isn't going to lie. It's going to tell the truth to you about what you did and where you invested your time and your energy. You can also ask, where did I spend my money, right? Your bank statements and credit card statements, again, aren't going to lie. They're going to show you, these were my priorities. No matter what you said your priorities were, those kind of metrics will reveal what your priorities actually are. Where you're spending your time, where you're spending your money. Evaluate where you invested, what relationships you invested the most time in, and it will start to show you what matters most to you in your life. And as we look at those things, we begin to ask ourselves the question, will these things last? Right? And that's the whole point of Jesus' story here. He is being very extreme in presenting us with 2 conclusions for our life. It says, look, everyone who hears these words of mine, now that you've heard them, you have 2 options. You can choose to build on me and your life will last, or you can choose to reject me and your life will crash. And so he begins to point us down these kind of 2 different paths, but he's teaching us you're already building something, and whatever you're building, it's going to be tested. Right now, as we think about the upcoming year, for most of us, our desire would be for a year that is just nice and smooth and easy, right? And if our New Year's resolutions actually had the power to change the world around us, then our resolutions would be like, this year I resolve no one around me will be an idiot. Right? This year I resolve everyone will be kind and patient with me without expecting the same thing in return. Right? These are just my resolutions, is that life will be easy and life will be good and nothing will come my way that kind of throws me off kilter at all. But what Jesus is telling us in this story is you're going to be tested. Both the wise and the foolish builder, he says, the storm come, the streams rise, the wind beats against it, and the strong building stands and the weak building fails. So what this reminds us of is a truth that, unless you're some kind of masochist, you really don't enjoy the idea of testing. But Jesus is saying it's coming, right? This year, you're going to be tested. And because you're going to be tested, you need to make sure you're building on the right foundation. Now, if you're like me, this is not a comforting thought. I don't like being tested. Even when I was in school, if I had ever had a class where I showed up the first day and the teacher said, hey, just so you guys know, absolutely no tests, they would have been immediately, forever and always, my favorite teacher. Right? Because you just know, kind of, hey, the pressure's off. I just get to come and enjoy it and hang out and fall asleep and, do all the kind of things that I want to do in class. But what Jesus is telling us is your life is going to be tested. Now, as followers of Christ, we don't have to fear the test. There's a pastor named Charles Spurgeon, and he once wrote, I have learned to kiss the wave that throws me against the rock of ages. And he kind of, hearing that kind of begins to transform my understanding of what it means to be tested, because it means periods of testing and trial are not signs that God is displeased or far from me, but testing and trial can often be gifts from God that He's using to demonstrate the strength of my foundation. And if it is from Him, it will hold. And if it's not from Him, it will crash. And so sometimes when things in your life are crashing, just let it go. Right? It's okay. It's fine, because in God's grace, He's letting that be pushed aside so that you can more clearly see the path that He is laying out for you. And what Jesus says is, look, when you're tested, if you've built your life on me, it will last. If you haven't, it will crash, which makes us then ask, well, how can we be sure then that we're actually building on the right foundation? Right? This is where our New Year's resolutions always fall a little bit short. Last week I was looking through my 2017 resolutions, and I noticed that there were several I did not keep. And the reason I didn't keep them was because I didn't know what 2017 was going to hold. One of my resolutions from 2017 was very serious. I was going to ride my bike once a week. What I should have known, because I've lived here long enough, is that it is really cold in the winter and really hot in the summer. And I think I made it 2 weeks. And then that one fell by the wayside. I resolved last year to eat 2 vegetarian meals a week. I should have resolved to eat 2 vegetables a week. Because I didn't even make it, I don't think I did I didn't do a vegetarian meal on purpose at all last year. It might have happened accidentally a couple times, but where somebody tried to tell me that chicken was chicken, and I believed them until I tasted it, and then it wasn't. But so you have these resolutions at times and you make them, and other times we make a resolution and we have every intention of keeping it, but then life happens. Right? People who resolve, I'm going to run a marathon this year. Well, but their knees don't actually agree with that, or their family doesn't agree with the training schedule. People resolve, I'm going to take the dream vacation this year, and right before you book it, you total your car, and well, there goes all the money, right? We can make these resolutions, but they're always going to be limited because we can't see what the future holds. Now, if we had that ability, we would be really, really good at New Year's resolutions, because we would only resolve to do things that we knew our time and schedule and health would allow. So when we're thinking of this, if we're so limited even in our New Year's resolutions, then how are we supposed to succeed at building our life in a way that's going to matter not just now, but for all of eternity? This is where we really need to turn to a wisdom that's beyond us. And it's where Jesus comes to us and He presents Himself as the one who sees the beginning from the end. The one who says, hey, where you're going, I have been, and I am charting a path for you. So trust me, follow me, and if you do, your life will matter. And He begins to lead us down this path, and He tells us it's very simple. He says, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. So 3 quick ideas. First, Jesus says, if you want to build your life in a way that matters, you need to be in the everyone who hears category, right? Which, kind of spoiler alert, that includes you right here, right now, today. When Jesus first speaks these words, they're at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. It's His longest kind of collected teaching in the Gospels. And he has, in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, he has just kind of blown the minds of the people who were there that day in explaining why he's come and how he's different than all the other teachers and how he's come not just to help them fulfill kind of the external requirements of the law, but he's actually come to transform their hearts and to lead them into this new kingdom. And so he says, everyone who hears these words has the opportunity to build their life on the right foundation. Now that everyone included everyone there on that day and everyone who has read or heard those words from that day until now. What it means for us is once we're in that everyone, we're without excuse for the decision we make. And so for some of us, this year might be one where for the first time we're confronted with this reality of I either have to choose the kingdom Christ has placed for me, or I have to reject it and choose my own kingdom. And if you come to that point of decision this year, don't be afraid of it. Right? It's a good place to be. That's a good confrontation to have in your life, to let the light of Christ shine in and reveal, hey, there are two ways here. You can take one or the other, but there's no middle ground. Jesus is telling us you can build your life on me and it will last, or you can build your life on yourself and it will crash, but there's no way that you get to navigate some kind of middle ground where you get a little bit of Jesus and a little bit of yourself. You have to choose, and everyone who hears now has this responsibility. This teaching of Jesus is directed at those who have heard the good news of who he is. But what do we hear from him? He says, everyone who's heard these words of mine. Again, in the immediate context, he's referring to everything he's just said in the Sermon on the Mount. In the larger context, he's referring to everything he says in all of his life and ministry. His life, his death, his resurrection, his teaching, all of that. These are the words of Christ. And so he's telling us, look, if you want to know how to build your life on a good foundation, you need to hear my words. Well, how do we do that? We do that by reading the scriptures. We do that by planting ourselves in a community with other people who are doing the same thing, where I'm not just reading it on my own, but I'm hearing from you. What does that mean to you? How's it making a difference in your life? And so we're doing that in our home groups. We're doing that in our Wednesday night discipleship groups. Our junior high and high school students are doing that in Remnant. Our kids are doing that right now in Kids Blast and their preschool groups. We are learning together the words of Jesus, because you can't build your life on something you don't know. Right? You have to know it, but then he brings us to the most important part. Anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, right? And does what I say. I mean, I know not everyone is a parent here, but as a parent, there are times that I have told my kids what to do, and they hear me, and they acknowledge me, and they don't do it. Right? And I know none of our teenagers in here, this is not you guys, but will you mentor my kids, please? So there have been times, and they came by it honestly. Like, I had the same genetic flaw as a child and teenager, and still do probably. Like the other day, my wife was like, "Are you even listening to me?" And I thought, that's a really rude way to start a conversation, but right, a little bit. Come on. No. But there are times where I'm telling my kids, like, hey, I said, put your stuff in your room. I know. Then why are you on the couch? Right? Like, your room is upstairs. Your stuff is everywhere. You're here. It's not gonna get there magically. You're not a superhero. You can't teleport your trash to your already trashed room. Dad, calm down. I know. You don't know. You know nothing. You don't even know how to put your shoes away, right? And so we have this experience. And for so many of us, this is the experience of our faith. Jesus is saying, anyone who builds their life on these words, like, I know. Do it. I know. Give. I know. Sacrifice. I know. Find joy. I know. We're just staying on the couch. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything. We have to get to this point where, knowledge in and of itself is not transformative, right? Knowledge transforms when it becomes experiential. There are all sorts of things in life that we know about, but they've made absolutely no difference in our life. In about a month or so, Angie and I are going to take our kids skiing. And snow skiing is one of my absolute favorite things in the world to do. And this will be the first time we've taken our whole family that they've all kind of been of age to fully engage in this process. So by the time we go, they'll be 13, 10, and 8. And so the next couple weeks, we're going to start having some talks with them to try to build their knowledge of what to expect, right? And if you're a parent who's ever paid for a vacation, you can feel the pressure I feel right now, right? Of like, have you ever heard that Jim Gaffigan thing of like, why do you walk around at Disney World and all the parents look so miserable? Right? And it's like, because they spent so much money and their kids are still whining. It's like, just have fun. So we're going to start these pregame talks and we're going to start telling them, look, we're going skiing and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be the most enjoyable thing you've ever done your whole life. It's going to be so much fun. But here's some things you need to know. You're going to get these hard plastic boots that are not comfortable and your feet are going to be cold. And I don't care. Right? So you're going to get them and you're going to stuff your little feet in there that are in like 4 layers of socks and we're going to ratchet them down and you're going to tell me your shins hurt. And I still don't care. And it's going to put you in this awkward position. If you've ever been skiing, you know, like there's nothing worse than walking in ski boots. You're just kind of locked in and you shuffle along like this. We're going to tell them it's fine. And guess what? You're going to walk. There are no piggybacks at the mountain. So you're going to walk with us and we're going to get your skis and you're going to lay them down and you're going to put your little toe in. You're going to jam your heel down in there till it clicks. And if it doesn't work, it's your fault and do it again. Right? So if you can't tell, there is a lot of grace in our pre-vacation instructions in our house. We're going to tell them you're going to click in, and then we're going to kind of shuffle over and mom or dad will kind of push you or pull you and we'll get over in front of that chairlift and it's going to come around and you're going to kind of squat and all of a sudden it's going to drill you in the back of the legs and you're going to fall back into it and we'll put our arm across and you'll grab the pole and we'll just hold on. And then we're going to ride up to the top of the mountain. And at the top of the mountain, right before you get there, you're going to get your tips up because you don't want to be that dummy who has your tips down and gets pulled back under the seat. So get your tips up. You're going to slide off gently while dad has you like by a death grip on the back of your coat. I'm going to push you off to the side and then we're going to make our way over and we're going to stand on top of the mountain. And we're going to stand there and we're going to thank God and we're going to wonder, how could I have done things differently in my life to where this could have been my full-time job, right? Or some of us might have that thought every time we're in that spot. And it's going to be sunny and the snow's going to be out and it's going to be beautiful. You're going to be cold, but I'm still not going to care. And then you're going to point your skis down. And as you point them down and we kind of go over that little lip, it's just going to be free and awesome and wonderful. And if you fall, you're going to get up, you're going to click back in, and we're going to go again, right? And this is all we're going to do. Right? Now we can have those conversations with our kids every single day from now until the day we get to the mountain. And it's 2018, so honestly, I'm going to be showing them some YouTube videos too on my phone of like, look, this is what a ski lesson looks like. This is what you're going to be doing. Because let's be honest, I'm not teaching my kids to ski. I'm taking them to the ski instructor while me and my wife go skiing. And then I'll pick them up at lunchtime. But here's the thing, they can know it all. And we can get them to the point where they can repeat all of this back to us verbatim. But if it just remains knowledge, if we never actually put them in the car and go to the ski mountain, guess what? They know all about skiing, but they're never actually going to know how to ski until they do it. For many of us, when it comes to building our life on the right foundation, we know all about it. We know the ins and the outs, and we can quote the scriptures, and we can, Jesus said to pray, and that Lord's Prayer thing, that's a good deal. He said to give, and I think people should do that, right? He said all of these things, but we never actually do it. We're like the little kid just hearing the stories of what the mountains are like without ever experiencing it. What Jesus is telling us is, look, either way, you're going to be tested. Either way, you're going to build your life on something. So why don't you build it on something that will last? Why don't you build it on something that will endure the test? And why don't you not just hear these words, not just read these words, not just listen to other people talk about how these words have changed them, but why don't you in 2018 make your number one New Year's resolution to be to do what Jesus said? Because I can tell you all day long about what it's like to feel God calling you to lay down these old sins and burdens that you've carried and to walk in this tremendous freedom. Right? I can tell you my stories of how just kind of this awakening moment of it doesn't matter what I do. God's not really impressed with my performance, which is great because I'm not a very good performer at all that stuff anyways. But He has just chosen me and He's welcomed me by His grace, and it's free and it's abundant, and I can lay down all these kind of legalistic requirements that I thought I needed to please God. I can just cast all that aside and stand secure and whole in my identity as His child. I can tell you that all day long, but until you start to read the Scriptures and let the Spirit go to work in you, empower you to live them out, it's just going to be knowledge and it's not going to be transformative. There are others here who could tell you stories this morning of times that God has called them to maybe give generously, extravagantly, sacrificially, and they have taken that step of faith and obedience, not knowing exactly how it's going to happen, and God has provided for them in supernatural and miraculous ways. There are those who could tell you their stories of being in desperate situations where they needed God's intervention in physical crises, where they were sick, where they got the diagnosis and things were not looking good. And they can tell you how as they cried out, God either came and brought healing or He came and brought supernatural strength in the midst of that sickness and disease. We've got people here who could tell you amazing stories of God's grace and faithfulness and favor. But my prayer for you this year is that they won't just be stories anymore, but that this will be your experience. I'm taking my kids skiing because I love to do that, and I love my children. And we love sharing things together as a family like that. I mean, how much more for those of us who have discovered this is true? I mean, I look around the room, there are so many of you, and I know your stories of how your foundation has held firm through severe trial and testing. How good is it to share that strength and that foundation with those that you love? How great is it? And this is why when Jesus presents us with these two ideas, you're either going to choose Christ or you're going to crash. We don't view that as a threat. We view it as an invitation. Jesus isn't saying, you better choose me or else. He's saying, look, this is the only path of life. And He's just being honest with us. He's saying, you can do what you want if you want to. Right? That first song we sang, Do What You Want To, it's actually not about you. Right? We're not inviting you to come and just sing a song, do what you want to. Yes, do what I want to. That's what I do all day, every day. I know it's a description of who Jesus is and what He does. He's describing to us, I'm going to do what I want to in your life, but here's the thing. You can let me do what I want to, or you can go your own way. What I want to do is make your life last and make your life matter. Everything you try away from me is going to crash and fail. When Jesus tells this story to the crowd that day, Matthew concludes it by telling us, when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at His teaching because He taught as one who had authority. I mean, just think of our own inability to even see what's coming this year. We might have some ideas, but we're incapable of actually knowing in detail what's going to happen. And Jesus comes to us as the one who sees the beginning from the end, the one who is before all things and in all things, the one who holds all things together. And He says, listen, if you'll just follow me, your life will last. Your foundation will hold firm. Even if death itself takes you, it will not win. Because my kingdom is not temporary, it's eternal. It's a promise of life now and life forever. And so we're going to finish with communion this morning as a reminder to us that Jesus actually is the only one who has the power and the authority to require this sort of decision from us. Because of His life, death, and resurrection, He gets to say to us, you have to choose one way or the other. So if you'll bow your heads and close your eyes with me, I want to pray for you. And then the ushers are going to come and distribute communion to us. God, we thank You that in Your grace and in Your goodness, You reveal Jesus to us. I pray for those this morning who perhaps have never made a decision to surrender their life to You. that as they hear your words, that we all have a choice to make. They would not hear it as a threat, but as an invitation. An invitation into a life that will matter and a life that will last. An invitation into a life where our foundation will hold firm against the strongest of storms. Where no matter what we face physically or emotionally, no matter our relational difficulties, the doubts that we have, no matter what, your foundation will hold firm in our lives. That even death itself cannot separate us from you. So Jesus, we choose to surrender our lives to you today. We pray that in just a moment, as we hold the elements of communion in our hand, that the bread and the cup will remind us of who you are and what you have accomplished. That we will remember when you promise life, you have already delivered it to us. That nothing in all of creation can separate us from you. Neither death nor life. Jesus, we thank you that your resurrection life is now our resurrection life. Pray that you would draw each of our hearts towards you. That the bread and the cup would remind us that all we need you have provided. In Jesus' name, amen. The ushers are going to come and serve the elements. The band's going to lead us in a song. We'll receive them together in just a moment.